Mimi was walking through the hallways of the building, which belonged to a large architectural and construction company. The firm wasn't just a monopolist in its field, it was a shark that devoured any competitors. Mimi's scarlet slip-on shoes clicked a jaunty rhythm with each step. Try as she might, she couldn't suppress the smile spreading across her face. "Hello," Mimi nodded to colleagues she met on her way. "Good afternoon," Mimi got in response. "Happy New Year!" exclaimed one of those enthusiasts who started preparing for the holiday at the first sign of December or the first snowflake. "And to you too," Mimi sang back. The company's staff reminded her of an anthill, everyone either busy with something or pretending to be. There were so many employees, it was impossible to know them all. Yet there was a delightful atmosphere within the team. Everyone felt like family, and this was the chief's doing. Mr. Riker devoted considerable attention to his employees, regularly organising holidays, corporate parties, and team-building events. Mimi hadn't participated in any events yet, having joined the company only 3 months ago in the advertising department. That's why she was especially looking forward to the New Year's corporate world. Word had it, these celebrations were always spectacular. This year, Mr. Riker had rented the city's finest restaurant and organised a masquerade ball. Mimi had already chosen her dress and mask. However, her fiancé, James Donnet, wasn't particularly thrilled about this development. He had initially objected. "Mimi, this is simply unprofessional, unethical. How can we work in the same company?" "What do you mean, how?" Mimi had snorted mockingly. "You've kept me waiting for 3 years. If we had been married, then you wouldn't have had such stupid thoughts. Are you waiting for my first wrinkles? Then I'll be unwanted." "What are you talking about?" James had replied sheepishly, hugging her. "I only want you, but working in the same building isn't right. What will people say?" "Have you seen your building? I thought they'd give me a map and compass when I got hired." Mimi had rolled her eyes. "It takes a week of running from wing to wing, beating a drum, just to meet someone you know. It's so massive. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bunker underneath. Besides, our departments are on different floors. I'm on the first, you're on the third." But James hadn't given up right away. He'd grumbled that there were plenty of advertising jobs in the world, and Mimi shouldn't have chosen his company. Eventually, though, his resistance faded. He accepted it. Besides, Mimi had been so busy at first that she barely had time to see James. Even now in December, their department was swamped with work. Today, however, Mimi made time to find her lover. It was James's birthday. She wanted to give him his gift at the office. James was an engineer with his own small office, something he took great pride in. Noticing their romance had cooled somewhat at work, Mimi decided to rekindle the flame and tease James a little. Yesterday, she'd had her hair cut and coloured, exactly as she wanted, though she'd paid the hairdresser handsomely, only to barely notice any difference in the mirror. Her manicure was fresh too, decorated with December-inspired snowflakes. But what really made Mimi smile slyly was what lay beneath her formal suit, a luxurious set of lace lingerie she'd received from James for her birthday. She'd never had the chance to wear it before. Mimi felt like a movie heroine as she anticipated James's reaction. No, she wasn't planning anything too adventurous in his office. She wasn't that bold. She planned to give him his gift, then playfully open her jacket to tell him she'd be waiting at a hotel that evening. She'd already booked a room and ordered champagne on ice. She'd passed the empty desk of the boss's secretary, young blonde Kelly, whom she'd always jokingly considered competition for James's attention. Taking a deep breath, she knocked briefly and opened the door. "Mr. Donnet," she sang playfully, "I have a special delivery for you." Mimi froze in the doorway. Her smile turned to a mask before crumbling completely, her eyebrows shooting upwards. "What the—" Mimi whispered, disbelieving her eyes. "What is going on here?" James jumped away from the secretary like a scalded cat. Kelly tugged at her skirt. One stocking with its lace band had slipped down. Kelly blushed, clutching her skirt to hide the black lace bodice. Mimi swallowed, struck by an absurd realization. She and the secretary were wearing identical lingerie. The jerk hadn't even shown imagination in his choice of gifts. "Mimi, how did you get here?" "On foot. Tell me, James, are you an idiot? You didn't even lock the door. Who cheats like that?" Mimi snapped, slamming the office door behind her. The man stood dumbfounded. Kelly blinked her huge eyelashes ridiculously like a doll. Mimi had a simple reason to close the door before anyone saw those ugly scenes. Being betrayed was one thing, but having it become office gossip was another. She didn't want to face pitying looks and become the subject of workplace drama. "Mimi," James called out, fixing his hair and taking a step toward her. "Let's talk calmly, okay?" Mimi wrinkled her nose, turning away. "Button your fly, you idiot," she snorted. Mimi was in pain. It hurt so much that breathing became harder with each moment. Still, she wouldn't show her feelings. No, she wouldn't give the traitor such satisfaction. On the contrary, let him think she didn't care. "So that's why you didn't want me to work here," Mimi said thoughtfully. "Didn't want to keep all your eggs in one basket." Kelly hummed and suddenly found her voice. She crossed her arms over her chest, her blonde hair mussed from James's hands. The girl was admittedly spectacular. Legs that went on forever, plump lips. Even in winter the blonde maintained a tan, which always sparked a hint of envy in Mimi. She herself couldn't achieve a chocolate tan even in summer, turning pink like a suckling pig instead. Her skin was too delicate. As an adult, Mimi had accepted this fact and given up tanning altogether. "You know what? It's good it turned out this way," the secretary said haughtily. "James has loved me for ages and wanted to break up with you, but he pitied you. Because of your sick father, but you can't keep a man through pity forever." James turned pale. "Who's sick? Dad?" Mimi burst out laughing. "Listen, James, if you knew my father was ill, why didn't you tell me? Not that I care. After all, he abandoned me and my mum when I was 8 to run off with his mistress. But you could have mentioned it." The blonde pouted. It was obvious that an unfamiliar activity was occurring in her head. Thinking. She shook her head dismissively. "Who cares? Did you know James and I have been vacationing together all along? It started at last year's New Year's corporate party. This year would have been our anniversary, and then you show up right before the party." "Kelly, shut your mouth!" James growled, his face purple, fists clenched. Mimi licked her lips, thinking frantically. She remembered his behaviour after last year's corporate party. He had vanished for 24 hours, then reappeared at his flat and treated her extra sweetly. Just guilt from cheating. But not enough guilt to end his affair with his boss's secretary. "Mimi." The man moved too close, trying to grab the woman's hands. Mimi recoiled as if he were plague-ridden. "Don't touch me. I'm not fully vaccinated," she hissed. James looked at her reproachfully, which only fueled Mimi's anger. "You know what? Your blonde's right. It's good this happened, because I couldn't keep quiet any longer." Mimi fired words like bullets, barely thinking. "I'm dating another man. I met him here at work, fell in love instantly. Finally understood what real feelings are. But I felt sorry for you. We'd been together 3 years. I didn't want to break up before the holidays. I'm not completely heartless." James's face contorted. He looked like a child whose favourite toy had been snatched away. "You're lying!" he shrieked. "Who else would you want but me?" Mimi raised an eyebrow. Well, apparently someone does. You couldn't have found anyone, James argued, sensing deception. Did you think you were irreplaceable? Mimi gave a sad smile. I pity you, James. It's hard falling from heaven to earth, but you're a mediocre fiancé. Besides, didn't you notice something was wrong? I've been avoiding you for 3 months. Couldn't even look you in the eye. Mimi was lying. She'd just been busy with work. But James took the bait, remembering how she'd cancelled dates, claiming work meetings. However, the ex-fiancé didn't give up easily. So, you found someone new? He narrowed his eyes. Fine. You'll bring him to the New Year's party, right? He works here, doesn't he? That's what you said. Mimi looked away, embarrassed. Oh no, her tongue let her down. She'd blurted out the first thing that came to mind, and now she'd have to deal with it. Do I need to prove anything to you? Mimi stepped backward. You said yourself that workplace relationships are trendy. I won't parade my feelings around just to spite you. Our company's quite open to romance. We're one big happy family. James grinned, studying Mimi's face. So feel free to walk hand in hand with your new fiancé. Nobody will mind. Mimi grew nervous. The man sensed it and smiled wider, regaining his composure. Mimi, he shook his head. Stop this nonsense, okay? I can tell you're making this up. Let's talk this through calmly. I care about you, you know? All this physical stuff means nothing. We're adults. We should forgive each other's moments of weakness. Kelly let out an indignant shriek, but James didn't flinch. Mimi, however, got furious. Moments of weakness, she repeated, savouring the words. She clapped her hands twice, then stepped close to her ex. Standing in heels, she was almost at eye level with James, which bolstered her confidence. But I have news that might upset you, James. I wasn't lying. Since you're so eager to see who I traded you for without a second thought, I won't come alone. And you two, enjoy yourselves. Well, how was the date? Holly asked, noticing her friend. Mimi gave her a frown. I have only one word for you. Adultery, she muttered. Holly shrieked and spewed out questions. What? With whom? He? Then, noticing other people's interested looks, she grabbed her colleague by the elbow and dragged her away. Come on, you need a smoke. But I don't smoke, Mimi frowned. Then you'll smoke passively next to me. Here, I haven't had a drink yet. Take a coffee. I understand that now you'd be happier with something stronger, but we have what we have. She shoved the drink into her friend's hands. Mimi nodded gratefully and took a big sip. The coffee was very milky and sweet. Usually, Mimi preferred strong drinks, but she had no choice. Tell me everything about it, her friend demanded, flicking the lighter. Mimi briefly explained her predicament. Now I have to find a boyfriend for the corporate party. Mimi groaned in despair, squirming in the winter wind. The young women had run out of the building without jackets. Well, that's not much of a problem. We have plenty of men. We're a construction company, Holly consoled her, inhaling from her cigarette and letting a cloud of smoke drift into the air. Holly's cigarettes smelled of cherries and sometimes chocolate. Mimi was against such bad habits. Life was already fragile, with enough things trying to kill you. She wouldn't deliberately poison herself every day. But now Mimi's hands itched to hold a cigarette and smoke, gracefully like in the movies. She imagined a thin cigarette between her fingers and the smell of cherry tobacco giving her confidence. Oh, do you want me to lend you my Sam for the corporate party? Holly brightened. What? Mimi burst out laughing, almost choking on another sip of sweet cappuccino. Your fiancé? Why not? He's handsome. Put him in a jacket and he looks like Johnny Depp before he married Amber Heard. And your James and my Sam have never crossed paths." Holly nodded. Mimi smiled wider, tilting her head. "Holly, you're a miracle. You're even ready to share my fiancé." Mimi wiped away a tear of laughter. Her heart filled with warmth. Holly was a marketer and the first person who had taken newcomer Mimi under her wing and never let go. A rumble came from the backyard. Mimi and Holly flinched at the sound. A truck pulled into the warehouse. The loaders bustled like ants, dragging boxes from the truck into the building. One box slipped. "Careful, lads," called a young man, deftly jumping out from the van to the ground. Mimi froze. The tall brunette looked gorgeous, even in his dirty blue overalls, the kind that looked like children's clothes. He wore an unbuttoned work jacket over them. His thick black hair was dishevelled. His eyes were bright blue, like sapphires. His jawline was sharp, his cheekbones well-defined, a face that made an impression. The loader's shoulders were broad, his work having clearly developed his muscles. Mimi's imagination took flight. She pictured herself, radiant with smiles, entering the restaurant on this handsome man's arm. He'd need a suit and perhaps a shower, but those were minor details. Her James would surely go mad with jealousy, seeing Mimi with such a guy. James himself was short, already developing a pot belly, and at 30 his hair was thinning at the nape. He claimed it was hereditary and dreamed of hair transplants in Turkey. Following her friend's gaze, Holly smiled, catching Mimi's thoughts. "Found yourself a date for the night? He's quite something, like he stepped out of a designer jeans ad and landed here. Think he'll agree to the adventure?" Mimi licked her lips, considering how to entice him. The thought of lacy lingerie beneath her jacket crossed her mind, but she quickly dismissed the shameful idea. "William, will we get a bonus? We're working like Santa's elves here," one worker called to the brunette. The brunette smiled as he helped lower a crate, handling it effortlessly. "I see," he nodded. "There's plenty of work since all the clients decided to use their budgets, so let's smile and keep at it, guys." The men laughed and continued working. Mimi, shivering like an aspen leaf and turning blue from cold, kept watching her target. The man worked steadily, pushing carts and moving loads. When the other took a smoke break, the brunette, unfortunately for Mimi, kept working energetically. But she couldn't wait any longer. She risked turning into an ice statue or ending up in hospital instead of at the masquerade ball. "Wish me luck," she mumbled and strode toward the loader. There was just one problem. Her shoes weren't made for snowy paths and had no grip. As Mimi neared her goal, her foot hit a snow-covered puddle. "Ouch!" Mimi cried, throwing up her hands. "Oh, I wish it wouldn't be a fracture," flashed through her mind as she imagined coordinating her dress with a cast. But she never hit the ground. Strong, steady hands caught her. The woman opened one eye, then the other. Her heart did a sweet flip. She found herself in the brunette's arms. "Are you all right?" he asked, still holding her. Mimi, blushing, leaned on his firm forearms and steadied herself. "Yes, thanks to you," she smiled coquettishly, or at least she hoped she looked coquettish. Her chattering teeth made it look more like signs of a stroke. "You should be more careful," the man advised, and turned to return to his abandoned cart. But Mimi, quick as a cheetah, grabbed his elbow. "Actually," she blurted, "actually I came to see you." The brunette turned around again, looking intrigued. Mimi swallowed, tucked her honey-red hair behind her ears, then pulled it out again. "Look, my proposal will seem strange, but please listen and help me if you can." "Will this be a long conversation?" asked the man, studying the petite girl thoughtfully. Mimi blinked nervously. "Well, I know you're busy. I'll try to keep it brief," she rambled. The brunette's smile softened his sharp features. "That's not what I meant. You're shaking. It's painful to watch." He shrugged off his jacket and, with one sweeping motion, draped it over Mimi's shoulders. "That's better. Now, let's talk." Mimi stood dazed, automatically wrapping herself in the jacket that still held his warmth and cologne. She unconsciously breathed in deeply, catching notes of freshness and citrus. "So, what's your name?" she asked resolutely. "William." "I'm Mimi. Tell me, William, do you have a girlfriend? A fiancé? A wife?" No, and no." He smiled wider, making Mimi flush. "Wonderful," Mimi exclaimed, then quickly backtracked at his surprised look. "I mean, I wish you happiness in your personal life, of course, but I desperately need a bachelor, just for one night." She held up her index finger, gazing pleadingly into his handsome face. "One night. You understand?" "Not really, but I'm intrigued." "No girl has ever asked me to spend the night quite like this. Won't you at least take me on a first date? Buy me flowers? Treat me to dinner?" William asked with a boyish smirk. "You misunderstand." Mimi glanced at the cart. "Tell me, how much do you earn as a loader? For unloading goods, for instance." "Enough for bread, and if I'm lucky, butter too," he replied, crossing his muscular arms. "What if I paid you more? I'm not rich, but I have savings. You'd play the role of my fiancé, preferably one who's head over heels in love with me, just for one corporate party night," Mimi suggested. "A simple business arrangement, nothing more." The man visibly considered it. Mimi stepped closer, noting that he towered over her by a head and a half. "Tell me, would extra money before New Year's Eve be unwelcome?" "No, it wouldn't," he agreed, failing to hide his smile. Mimi brightened. "See? You benefit, and I get what I need." "But why do you need this?" he asked directly. "Surely there are eligible bachelors in our company." Mimi hesitated momentarily, then decided to tell all. If she was taking this handsome man as an accomplice, he should know what wrong they were righting. "Today, I caught my fiancé with his mistress in his office, and he knows how I feel about cheating. My father cheated on my mother. I caught him with his mistress when I was little. I told my mother, and for years I thought their divorce was my fault. Knowing all this, James still did this to me," she burst out. "In my anger, I claimed everything with him was over and that I'd fallen for someone else at work. But James didn't believe me. He expects me to bring this supposed colleague to the corporate party. I want to prove him wrong, and I want my companion to be so handsome that James thinks he is like a Greek god descended from Olympus." Mimi trailed off, not noticing her listener barely containing his laughter. "So, I meet the criteria?" he asked slyly. "I had no idea I had Greek gods in my family tree." Was Mimi embarrassed? Yes. Was she backing down? No. "You'd have to ask your parents. I definitely see something of Apollo in your features," she offered the compliment. "Are you flattering me?" The brunette eyed her suspiciously. "Yes," Mimi nodded matter-of-factly. "Is it working?" 100%, nodded William, grinning. "All right, Mimi. Truth is, I wasn't planning to attend the corporate party. I don't particularly enjoy noisy events or watching the accounting department get drunk. But now I'm rather tempted." "So it's a deal?" Mimi jumped excitedly and nearly slipped again. The man caught her swiftly, pressing her against his firm chest. "It's a deal," he nodded, looking into her face. "But my services might not come cheap." "I'll agree to anything Except loans, Mimi declared.
Won't need those,
the brunette assured her. The conspirators exchanged phone numbers, with William promising to call that evening. Mimi wanted to meet several times to discuss the details. The first meeting took place in a cafe. When Mimi arrived, William was already waiting at the table, clean and tidy, in a black, plain turtleneck. "We don't have much time," said Mimi, sitting across from him. "We have our whole life ahead of us," William replied philosophically, and signalled the waitress. "I haven't ordered. I don't know what my fiancé likes. My deepest apologies." "That's precisely what I wanted to discuss," Mimi began, placing a thick folder on the table. "Here, I've compiled information about myself, and about us too. I want you to learn the history of our fake romance. How we met, how we hid our feelings." William choked on his tea. "Oh, will there be an exam? Are cheat sheets allowed?" Mimi frowned. "Can you be serious? You want to earn money, right?" "I really do," nodded the man, taking the folder. To her surprise, William pushed the folder aside. "Let's do it another way. You want to play it straight, don't you? So let's just pretend we're having an affair. Tonight is our first date, and I'd like to get to know you better." Mimi looked into his bottomless blue eyes and was stunned. She had to pull herself together and remind herself that everything happening was a farce, one she would pay for out of her own pocket. However, the more Mimi and William met, the harder it became to convince her heart that there was nothing here for her. William's company made her head spin. He was gallant, cheerful, and sincere. He told Mimi about himself, though he preferred not to mention his family. "I work as a loader when the company has too many deliveries," he confessed as they walked around the city after dinner. "I have another job, but it's boring. When I was a kid, I dreamed of being a captain. Then I climbed on a ship at the playground. You know, those iron ones they used to have in courtyards. I fell off and broke my leg. I even saw the bone. That's when I decided I didn't want to be the new Magellan. I'm fine on land." William lifted his trouser leg, showing the scar that had turned white with time. Mimi responded by showing him her battle wounds. "Here on the knee, look." Mimi rolled up her trouser leg. "I got this scar crossing a river, jumping on rocks in my grandmother's village. The rocks were slippery, and I fell and hit myself. And this one I got falling on glass while jumping from garages." "You like to jump?" The man shook his head. Passers-by looked curiously, some with disapproval, at the couple showing off their legs to each other. But the man and woman seemed oblivious to others around them. "I dreamed of becoming a figure skater when I was a child, but we couldn't afford skates then. And after my dad left, my mum had little time for me," Mimi remembered thoughtfully, watching the snowflakes. "I never learned to skate." William cast a thoughtful glance at her and smiled. Their next date was at the ice rink, on the shopping centre's roof. Mimi kept falling down, taking William with her, but it didn't hurt. It was pure fun. After several delightful evenings together came the night of the corporate party. William picked Mimi up in a luxury foreign car. "You look astonishing," William said, opening the door for her. The woman hopped into the leather interior and giggled, shaking off her legs. "It's all the mask. Cover half your face and you instantly become more handsome," she joked. "Where did you get a car like this? You didn't steal it, did you?" "Borrowed from a friend," William winked. "Can't take the princess to the ball in a shopping trolley, can I?" "Very cool," Mimi admired. Then she looked at the driver and couldn't suppress an amazed sigh. In the cabin light, she saw a transformed William in a luxurious suit. He was no longer William from the warehouse. He was Bond, James Bond. "Ready to take revenge on James?" he asked. "Who?" Mimi asked, then blushed deeply. "Oh, yes, I am." She turned to the window. Embarrassingly, amid all their romantic meetings, she'd completely forgotten their main goal. She hadn't even thought about her ex while with William. He'd so captivated her with this romance that she'd almost started believing in it. Mimi's mood fell. She realised it would all end soon, dissolve into the night, like Cinderella losing her prince at the final stroke of midnight. And she no longer cared about James and his Kelly. She wished the night would never end. She felt his palm cover her folded hands in her lap. She sighed and looked at him in surprise. "What's wrong? You're wrinkling your dress." "Nervous?" He smiled gently, barely squeezing her thin fingers. "No. Well, a little." Mimi pulled her hand away, surprising William, but pretended to adjust her mask. "We still haven't discussed your fee." "There's time for that. Let's enjoy ourselves first. We'll discuss business later," William hummed, returning his attention to the road. At the restaurant, Mimi checked her coat. William put on a small black mask that concealed little. He offered his elbow and smiled. "Shall we?" She nodded meekly and, heart pounding in her ears, wrapped her arms around his. Mimi had prepared herself for many things, but not this. For a moment, even the music seemed to stop. The room was already full of guests. Everyone who noticed the new arrivals began whispering to their companions, drawing attention to the couple. "Why is everyone staring?" Mimi asked nervously as they descended the stairs under countless gazes. "You have to ask? Because you're stunning," William whispered in her ear, sending pleasant shivers down her neck. Mimi snorted, flattered but not quite believing him. "There's your ex, our engineer," William said cheerfully. "Let's go over to them. Time to put all my preparation to the test." Before Mimi could object, William had taken her hand and was leading her through the crowd. Some guests parted, nodding and almost bowing, while others tried to stop him. "Mr. Riker," an accountant with a flushed face, blocked their path. "Your first time at the party. How wonderful! Will your father be joining us?" "Yes, a bit later." William smiled politely, staring around the dazed woman. Mimi began connecting all the facts. William had always avoided talking about his father, only mentioning his mother, an artist. But before the thought could fully form in Mimi's mind, James appeared before them. Kelly stood next to him, pouting, offended. She stared at William, nearly dripping saliva on her dress. "James, I heard you were eager to meet me. Although technically we already know each other," William began. "I'm sorry, but I won't shake hands. And you probably won't be pleased either. After all, I confess, I stole your woman. What's strange about that? If you don't keep your eyes on the treasure, someone is bound to steal it." James turned pale. He looked at his ex and at the chief director's son, but couldn't accept what he saw. "By the way," the man drew Mimi to him, "perhaps I should thank you. Mimi was worried she might hurt you, but I see everything is fine on the personal front, except that it's customary for us to work in offices, and you seem to have forgotten that fact." "Mr. Riker," the man was sweating, "you've got it all wrong." "I think I got it right. Well, I'm sorry to spoil your party, but the matter is urgent. I'd like to leave all the bad things of the year behind, you know?" "What are you talking about?" The man was frightened. "You're overstepping your authority. It's just that you've been using your office like a cheap hotel room for dates. I've learned you requested money for additional expenses, but it wasn't used for its intended purpose. I hope on Monday you'll account for every penny. If not,
Then please leave our company," he nodded at Kelly, "and take everything with you." "But, Mr. Riker—" "My father knows everything," William hissed, "and I will soon take over his duties. You don't need to congratulate me on my promotion. I'll do without."
Then William turned to Mimi and smiled softly.
"Let's go have fun?"
Mimi nodded, casting a fleeting glance at James in farewell. Nothing in her chest twitched. No gloating, no pity, nothing. It seemed the vacant place in her heart had already been occupied by someone else. William and Mimi had a wonderful time. Mimi felt like a princess at the ball. Holly was happy for her friend, as was Sam. Soon, Mimi learned the truth. It turned out that William had simply helped the men in the warehouse that day. Being well brought up, he was no stranger to any work in the company, having started from the bottom. That said, William didn't exactly frequent the offices, so neither Mimi nor Holly had recognized him. Midnight was approaching. William asked Mimi to dance. They slowly circled around the hall. People still watched them, but not so intently. Mimi, breathing in the aroma of citrus perfume and feeling another man's heartbeat, could not stand it and decided to learn the truth about what had tormented her all night. "Why did you agree to this? You obviously don't want the money," she said.
"Happiness isn't in money," grinned William. "I just couldn't miss the most unusual date of my life."
But the date wasn't real."
"Who said so?" He raised his eyebrows. "There was me. There was you. There was chemistry between us. I think it was real."
Mimi's head was spinning. "But you said your services would be expensive. You just tricked me."
"But I didn't ask for money," the man retorted. "I said your scam might cost a lot, but it's not about money."
"What is it about?" Mimi didn't notice how they stopped. William still had his hands on her waist, not letting her move away from him. Mimi's heart was racing.
"About the fact that I might enjoy playing the role of your fiancé," said William. "I wasn't sure about it then. After all, love at first sight isn't my story. But you can't fool your heart. The more I got to know you, Mimi, the more I was convinced I was right."
"I don't understand," mumbled Mimi, stubbornly disbelieving what was happening.
"I'm interested in you. You occupy all my thoughts. You make my heart beat faster. I like you," William answered her patiently and sincerely. "With you, I constantly want to smile, to see you more and more often, and I really hate parting. I think I've fallen in love with you. So, now you're going to have to pay for your prank for a long time. Probably for the rest of your life. If you don't mind, of course."
Mimi didn't mind, but she couldn't answer. She didn't have the strength. She simply pitched forward. William leaned towards her. Their lips merged in a long-awaited kiss. Midnight struck. However, the magic didn't dissipate. On the contrary, it was just beginning.